Welcome, everyone, to Temple Bethel. I'm Rabbi Sarah Mack, and we're really thrilled to host this conversation. We take our civic responsibility very seriously and know that many of you probably vote here, and as a sacred space, we're grateful to count you as our neighbors and our community. The word Beit Knesset means house of gathering. And we are grateful to be a place of community gathering where we care for one another in good times and in bad. And it is my greatest joy to introduce Emily Gaudreau to you, who speaks tonight from her position at the Jewish Alliance, and also grew up at Temple Bethel, and is one of my former students, and I'm always thrilled to sit at her feet and learn from her.
Thank you, Rabbi Mack, for that very generous introduction, and I will do my absolute best to live up to those very kind words. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here tonight. I want to extend my gratitude to Temple Bethel for hosting us and the Providence Police Department for ensuring our safety this evening. We are very grateful to have all 5 general election candidates here with us tonight. Before we hear from the candidates, let me outline tonight's format and then our expectations of all of you. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for both opening and closing statements. Between those, they'll respond to 6 questions, some from me, others came directly from the RSVP form that you all submitted. While we have a timekeeper located right in the front, we are operating on the honor system, so I'll ask candidates to be mindful of their allotted time. I know 6 questions may feel insufficient to address the many challenges facing our city. If we don't cover an issue that's important to you, please speak with the candidates directly. We've reserved around a half an hour afterwards for you all to talk with them. To make the most of our time together, candidates have been asked to address their responses to you, the audience, rather than to each other, and to avoid crosstalk. We ask that all candidates maintain civility and refrain from personal attacks. I make the same request of you. At a time when our national politics is marked by increasing polarization, intolerance, and even violence, let's model the community we want to see. Please hold our applause, jeers, and reactions during the candidates' responses. It falls on all of us to demonstrate respect for one another, for this process, and for our democracy itself. Now, without further ado, let's begin. I'll invite our candidates to take 2 minutes each and deliver opening remarks. Mr. Brito, we will start with you.
Excellent. Hello, I'm Axel Brito, running as a Republican for City Council, and it is one of my greatest honors to be on this stage. I come from LA. I ended up at Brown through a scholarship, and instead of pursuing economics, business, or anything else, I decided to go to teaching. And I'm going to be a teacher soon, and that is one of the main reasons I decided to run today. To run, to teach, to be a teacher, and actually address the problems that our community is facing, not just in Ward 2, but across Providence. We have to think about that my generation is going to face so many issues: affordability, housing insecurity, food insecurity. And it is time that my generation had a seat at the table to be allowed to speak and to allow themselves to feel heard. And it is something that I'm trying to do because me and many others are trying to take root here, try to live here, start a family. And some people might ask me, why are you running if you don't own property? And that's one of the issues. Not owning property is one of the biggest issues we have. Fundamentally, through the Lockean perspective, property is one of our inherent rights, and we do not have that. And that is why I run. I run for the future of our community and for everyone else.
Good evening, my name is Dave Caldwell. I am originally from North Kingstown. I moved up here to Providence about 8 years ago with my wife and 2 daughters when they started at Lincoln for junior high. We'll come back to that a little bit later in tonight's program. But what brought us here tonight started with Brett Smiley's campaign for mayor. I got to know Brett when he was chief of staff to Gina Raimondo. A good friend of mine. I supported her all the way back to when she ran for treasurer the first time when nobody knew who she was. So Brett ran for mayor, supported him, fundraiser, helped campaign, and right after he got elected, he said, "That's great, I appreciate all your support, But what I also need is volunteers to step up for boards and commissions to keep moving the city forward. I need your help. So I said, all right. I volunteered for the City Plan Commission and was been on there about the past 2 years. I've enjoyed that quite a bit. We put the comprehensive plan together for 10 years. We had an unprecedented amount of public outreach and engagement to build that plan, charting the city's future for the next 10 years. You can see what's happening with a lot of the construction going on. We are addressing the housing crisis. We are building the housing that both Providence and Rhode Island needs. I'm very proud of that. So that brings us here tonight. So the next step that I see to continue to help move the city forward is on the city council to keep the program in place that we're embarked upon together. I see good things coming for Providence. I think the challenges that we have can be managed with good leadership, common sense leadership, people who want to solve problems. I believe we should all be able to speak freely. We should be able to argue passionately. We can disagree, vehemently even, but we all have to come together to get things done. True leaders bring people together to get things done. I'll always give you clear answers. You'll know where you stand, and we'll get things done together. Thank you for hosting tonight.
Hi, I'm Jill Davidson. I really want to thank the Jewish Alliance in Temple Bethel for hosting us tonight, and thank all of you for choosing to spend time with us tonight. So I've lived in Providence for more than 20 years, and during that entire time, I've done everything I can to bring our communities together, to fight for what we need and make change. I started doing that in education. My 3 sons have attended the Providence Public Schools for 19 years. My youngest graduated in 2024, so it was a lot of PTO meetings, a lot of engagement. And one of the things that I did early on was join a group of neighbors led by Sam Zurier with about 20 or 30 of us that fought to keep Nathan Bishop Middle School open, to keep that school as a resource for our community. We also were able to work with the state to secure $26 million for its renovation. Once I started doing that, I kept going. I worked with family and community members all over the city to make sure that families were at the table when decisions were being made about our kids. Now I work in environmental resilience in Providence. I've had the honor of working with many departments in Providence and city council members to create environmental sustainability in our city. We're going to do the same thing with affordability. As we know, Providence has gotten increasingly affordable. This has touched my family. I know from talking to many of you, it's touched your families, and it's a gigantic issue facing our city. I'm eager to work with the city council and with all of you to find ways to make Providence more affordable and sustainable for our citizens. My values have always been guided by Tikkun Olam, to repair the world and make it better. We do that by bringing people together, by loving and knowing our neighbor. That's always how I've operated as a leader, and I'm excited to keep going on city council. Thanks.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. I've been really encouraged by the enthusiasm of Ward 2 voters. As we were saying at the No Kings March, this is what democracy looks like, and it looks pretty good to me. I've been asked more often in the last few days when I've been talking to voters, knocking on doors, what sets you apart from the other candidates? I realize we're coming up to the end here. People need to make a decision. And so I want to help you with that and tell you a couple things that I think distinguish me from the other candidates. The first is my independence. I haven't made any promise to anybody in exchange for an endorsement or a contribution in this race, and not everybody up here can say that. I did that intentionally because I know how politics works, and I wouldn't want to go down to City Hall for my first term in the City Council with one arm tied behind my back. I want to be able to evaluate the issues, do my research, talk to constituents, and vote the way I think that's best for the city. The other thing that sets me apart is that I'm the only lawyer in this race, and if I'm elected, I would be the only lawyer on the council. I don't think the whole council should be lawyers. That would be bad, but I think one lawyer is probably a good idea, and I think being the only lawyer would give me an advantage. It would give me a way to help my colleagues, to build trust with my colleagues, because I have a different understanding of the ordinances we're trying to pass and how they interact with existing law. Also, I've Throughout my career, I've negotiated deals, I have helped my clients solve problems, I've fought for my clients, I've fought for the issues and causes that I believe in deeply, and those are the skills and experiences that I would bring to the City Council, and I think we need that right now. We're at a time when we're under assault from Trump, and we need to be more vigilant and spend more of our energy making sure that that doesn't impact all of the things that we're going to be talking about tonight: schools, housing, and everything else. So thanks, and if you're still undecided, I hope I can earn your vote tonight.
Well, hi neighbors. My name is Matt McDermott, and I am running for City Council for a very simple reason, which is I believe in the promise of this city and the possibility of what's possible over the next decade. My husband and I moved to Providence for the same reason many did. We're here to start and raise a family. And I truly believe this city is going to face issues over the next few years that will fundamentally shape what this city looks like over the next 10, 20, 30 years. The biggest of those issues is going to be our schools returning to local control next summer. I personally think it is the biggest inflection point this city is going to face in the next generation. If we get it right, we can finally establish a governance structure, we can finally establish accountability in our schools, and we can finally set students up for success. It is the number one question that I hear talking on doors every single day. Why is it we live in a city where you have children and they 4, 5, 6 years old, and you're faced with a question? Do we have trust in our public school system? Do we happen to have a few $100,000s to send our kids to private school, or do we move to Barrington? And I just functionally don't think that is a question that this city should be asking itself. And so that is the biggest reason why I'm in this race. I'm fortunate to have my husband by my side here with me tonight, who's a second grade public school teacher in our Providence public schools, is on the front lines of these issues every single day. And I think we need more leaders in our city hall who understand the importance of our schools for the future of this city, not just for families who want to send their kids to our schools, but for economic development, right? We saw with Hasbro a few weeks ago moving up to Boston. Their number one reason for doing that was that we don't have a strong enough public school system for them to support their workforce. So I'm looking forward to talking about all of the issues tonight, but I just want to thank you all for taking the time to participate in this important discussion, and turn it back over to you, Emily.
Thank you, everybody. We're going to get started, and our first topic is on housing. The cost of living weighs heavily on individuals and families throughout Providence, and the East Side is absolutely no exception. The City Council's Housing Crisis Task Force has recommended that effective rent stabilization policy should include capping annual rent increases, requiring 90-day notice of increases, and establishing penalties for landlords who attempt to bypass these regulations. Do you support rent stabilization to reduce the burden on renters? If not, what specific strategies will you pursue to expand the supply of affordable housing, provide relief to renters, and ensure new development honors the architectural character of all of our neighborhoods? Mr. Levy, up to you.
Is that, yes? Can you hear me?
No.
Oh, you turned it on. Sneaky. Rent control, rent stabilization is an example of something that I really didn't know a lot about when I started in this race. And it sounded good to me because I do want to provide relief to renters, particularly in the low and middle incomes. But then I did a lot of research, and I read academic papers, I read newspaper articles. Steph Machado had a great one in the Boston Globe about Portland, Maine a few weeks ago, and talked to some experts in the field who I know, and came to the conclusion that rent control doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It's basic economics. The housing crisis, the rent crisis, is a supply and demand problem. We need to build more housing. We need to build more housing at every price point across the city, wherever we can. We, of course, need to pay attention to the existing character of our neighborhoods and protect the character of our neighborhoods. But the only way out of the housing crisis is to build more housing. It's a regional problem. The state needs to do it too. The other cities, Cranston, Pawtucket, need to do it too. But that's the way to get out of this crisis we're in.
So we need to be compassionate. in everything that we do, and that has to inform our housing policy as well. We had some good news about housing permits this week, but we have a long way to go. We're in a crisis for our rental market. 60% of Providence residents are renters, and we have the highest rent in the country. Over the past 5 years in Rhode Island, homelessness has increased 35%. 24,000 people have been evicted. So we can't ignore that. I love that we are building new housing, and I will do everything we can to encourage it. But I've talked to developers, and it's going to take years before that housing comes online in a meaningful way. I think that we can look at good examples of rent stabilization policies, as well as ones that haven't worked, to craft rent stabilization as an element of what we can do to protect people in Providence now. It's critical that we think both long-term, build housing as much as we can. I think we have good national examples of ways that we can use policies like rent stabilization to make it possible for people to stay in their homes.
Mr. McDermott.
So, look, I am a firm believer that housing is a human right, and I have said in forums to date that I will support any and all proposals on the table to make housing and rent in this city more affordable. It's why I support good cause eviction, likely going to be a legislative effort at the state level this year. Very simple predicate, which is you should have a good cause for needing to evict a tenant in your building. I also oppose in this city a student impact fee, which some on this stage support, which would be a tax on young folks in this city of $300 a year at a time when affordability is a pressing concern. My issue with rent stabilization is there's a dirty secret in this city right now, which is that a piece of legislation is going to be introduced in the next few weeks. I have urged council leadership to release that legislation now so that we can have a coherent conversation about what works and what doesn't in it. There are a lot of questions on the table about what that proposal will look like. Our only ability to have a conversation meaningfully about it is for them to release the text of that legislation.
Thank you. I'll do my best in 1 minute. I do serve on the State House Commission on Housing Affordability. I am a contractor, informal developer. I do believe this is the most urgent issue facing Providence right now. I am in agreement with that. I am disappointed in the City Council's task force that they never asked a single landlord for any input on this discussion, which shows that we are not working together to find problems when we're interested in dividing. So, rent stabilization, let me explain what will happen if you implement a policy of rent stabilization. First thing that will happen, the rents will spike. That's number one. Number two, landlords will begin to sell. Our local landlords will sell. We will get private equity firms and places like Blackstone to move in here. You will see capital that we need to build the housing that we're building freeze and stall. You will then see deferred maintenance not happening. You will see trash not picked up. You will see yards not mowed. You will see impacts on your neighborhood. And finally, you will see the values of those commercial and rental properties drop, which means the single-family homes will have to be increased to make up the difference. Thank you.
I fully support a rent freeze. That's unequivocal. I don't see it as a permanent solution, but as a stopgap measure in which we are able to go ahead and build housing, but for the meantime, have low-income communities and middle-class communities have a place to live. Housing insecurity should not be something a child should think about, and unlike my opponent Caldwell here, I didn't reduce the budget for affordable housing by $10 million, and we don't have to wait for Blackstone to come in when there's already developers and landowners that own much of the property here in Rhode Island and Providence. It's pretty insular. So I think that affordable housing should be a right, a human right. And more to the matter, we can build ADUs now, affordable development units, and use that as another stopgap measure in which we are able to provide housing for cheap while also allowing the nuclear family to continue to exist. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and I will remind the candidates to direct your answers to the audience and not make personal attacks. Thank you. Turning to the environment, Ward 2 faces unique climate challenges due to its proximity to the Seekonk River and Narragansett Bay. The east side has already experienced significant flooding during major storms, particularly in low-lying areas near India Point Park, along the waterfront, and in neighborhoods where aging infrastructure struggles with increasingly intense rainfall. Climate projections show these risks will only increase. What is your plan to protect Ward 2 from climate change impacts? Mr. McDermott, we'll start with you.
So look, we live in an amazing state. We are predicated in Rhode Island by the Act on Climate. All goals in this state are now directed by the Act on Climate. It's one of the most progressive climate change policies in the country. We're not meeting the targets of the Act on Climate right now. Our ability at the local level to make meaningful progress is immense, particularly in public transit over the next few years. It makes up one of the largest sectors right now as it relates to the Act on Climate, something like 37% of emissions in the state right now. It is also the sector that is doing the least amount of progress towards our Act on Climate goals. So what can we do on the local level? It's all about making our communities more walkable and bikeable, getting vehicular traffic off of our streets. In this community in particular, the Washington Bridge crisis has had an enormous impact on our neighborhood. I think we all see and understand for the first time what that impact is doing to our communities. Walkability and bikeability is how we can make meaningful progress over the next few years.
Thank you. We'll turn to Mr. Brito.
I believe it's too late for climate change reform. I think it is now a matter of resiliency. We need to improve our current infrastructure to withstand these torrential rainfalls, the potential effects of a drought, which Rhode Island had faced for quite a while. And we need to actively look towards not electric vehicles, not these types of methods that move the carbon emissions from our area to the global south. We need to improve our capabilities in creating clean energy, and that can come in the form of nuclear power. Small nuclear power plants will be an efficient way to produce clean energy for this community. Long maligned has it been for its radioactivity. That's all farcical. Data shows that nuclear power plants are the safest and cleanest, because carbon emissions from other types of power plants lead to lung disease and other serious long-term chronic issues that affect the community.
So, as Emily pointed out, climate change impacts are real, and we need to be focusing on climate resilience in this neighborhood and all neighborhoods. I work at the Woonasquatucket River Watershed Council, where we work in partnership with the City of Providence to increase climate resilience in meaningful ways for the city. We do this by building green spaces, alternative transportation paths that also create effective ways to absorb stormwater. We prevent downtown Providence from flooding. We do that by working in partnership with multiple agencies in Providence, with city council members, with the mayor and his staff. All of these practices are ideas that we can bring to Ward 2. I've been very lucky and I'm grateful to be endorsed by Climate Action Rhode Island, Run on Climate, and the Providence Streets Coalition, because they recognize they have the expertise and leadership to get this work done. I want to commend in particular the work of the Blackstone Parks Conservancy. They're an example of a nonprofit here in Ward 2 that's doing terrific work to protect our environment, and I'm looking forward to working with them more extensively as we move forward.
Thank you. Mr. Levy.
Look, the city has some laudable goals for sustainability and environmental action, including electrifying our vehicles, changing to renewable electricity in the city buildings, and electrical heat within 20 years, I think. That's great, and I think we should continue down that path. I think Matt's right that the Act on Climate is important, and we should continue to chase those goals. Throughout this campaign, I have pointed out the damage that the Trump administration is doing to Providence, and that we need to be more proactive about about dealing with those threats. And this is a perfect example. If the election last November had turned out differently, I would be up here talking to you about strengthening our partnership with the federal government to address these climate issues. And we would be doing that. But at this point, for the next 3 years, I think we're going to be playing catch up and fighting against the effects of Trump administration policies, and it'll be hard to meet our goals that way.
Thank you. Mr. Caldwell.
Thank you. This is my most important issue. It is our most important issue, and it's one I'll be working on both either on the council or elsewhere in life. I'm presently the chair of the board of the Audubon Society of Rhode Island, entering my 4th year in that capacity, and I serve on the Executive Climate Change Coordinating Advisory Board at the State House. And I've been co-endorsed by Climate Action of Rhode Island with candidate Davidson on my left. Good organization. I hope you all work more towards that. But specifically what we would do here, I can show you if you come down the block to 41 Blackstone. My wife and I are doing a little remodel on our house and moving to we live in a duplex, and we're making the first floor unit our owner's unit. So we've torn out the gas furnace and converted to heat pumps to go electric. And the second thing we're doing is taking all our downspouts and roof water runoff and infiltrating it on site. We all need to do that because the frequency of our storm events are beyond what our capacity of our systems can handle. So that's one thing we should think at your own house. Stormwater Innovation Center at Roger Williams Park, Audubon, go check it out. Happy to talk more.
Thank you. We will turn now to the Providence Public Schools, a very hot topic. Providence Public Schools continue to struggle in the aftermath of the state takeover. As a city councilor, what do you believe is the best path forward for our public schools, and what role would you play in advancing educational outcomes? Simply put, do you believe Providence is prepared to resume local control of the schools? Mr. Brito, we'll start with you.
Providence is not prepared. It has not been prepared for a long time, but that is exactly why I'm running. The city council has a responsibility and should have a responsibility in the direction we lead the future of our children. When we look at Providence School District, one of the biggest issues has been administrative bloat, which cuts into spending that can go to the children directly, and a non-linear, non-outlined hierarchy of power within the school district. And what we need is school choice. When we look at Florida, who modeled its system off of Massachusetts' Freedom of Choice initiative, it improved dramatically. It now far exceeds us. And you look at Mississippi, they copied the same model that Florida had, and now it far exceeds us. Mississippi is exceeding us, and now that is a disappointment and a disservice to our community. I'm from LA, where my county is the size of the state, and it is honestly an embarrassment to not have more proactive leadership that works towards our children's future.
Clearly, the state takeover has not yielded the expected results, so the schools will be coming back to Providence. The council and the mayor will be responsible for them. I believe the second term of the Smiley administration will be focused entirely on schools. The mayor's told me that will be the signature initiative of his last 4 years. I support him in that effort, and I think that's the best that we have to move forward with as the schools come back to Providence. What I will be focusing on specifically is career technical education. I come from the building trades. I've been endorsed by the AFL-CIO and the construction building trades. They know that we need to focus on good jobs that will not be eliminated by AI. Those of us at my age were told to go to college, get a degree, everything will be fine. Those days are gone. So preparing our children for the future here, I expect that we will be spending a lot more focus on skilled trades than we will just on college prep as we hit the college cliff.
We're not prepared to take the schools back, but we're going to do it. We need to do it. We need to do a lot of work over the next year to establish a governance structure that makes sense, that provides accountability. And we also need to hire a great superintendent who has vision, who has bold ideas, who's willing to innovate, and willing to take the school district to a different place. Because if we continue to run the school district the way we have for the past 20, 30 years, we shouldn't expect different results. But I'm going to come back to the Trump administration, because again, this is an area where it's really important. The Trump administration has already pulled millions of dollars in Department of Education grants from the schools because of our woke ideology. And when that happened, the state education commissioner said, nobody saw this coming. That happened in July. I saw it coming. I think probably many of you saw it coming. At the same time, the Trump administration is suing the Providence schools to end a program that provides student loan reimbursement to teachers of color. These things are going to keep happening. And if we want to keep our schools teaching the values that we have in Providence, not the Trump values, we're going to have to play defense for the next 3 years.
Thank you. Ms. Davidson.
Yeah, as noted, the Providence Public Schools are coming back to city control. And what we need to remember is that our public schools belong to us. We are the key leaders of the Providence Public Schools. We absolutely need to have strong governance. We need a strong superintendent. We've had strong superintendents. They don't stay because we don't have the conditions for them to stay. But we need to shift that. One of the things that's going to make a huge difference, just like I've been talking about earlier, is to make sure that family and community members are at the table when people are making decisions about kids. No school system has ever improved without that. All stakeholders have to be ready. Family and community members have to be a big part of it. The difference I'm going to make at City Council is bringing 19 years of experience as a Providence Public School parent and decades of experience as an education leader in governance and policy to make sure we can learn our lessons, do what other states and cities have done, because this is a partnership with the state, to make sure that our schools are on the path to move forward successfully.
So look, this city cannot achieve its promise if we don't get our public schools right. We're going to take them back next summer, but the work needs to begin right now. My priority in this race has been getting this city to recognize that the work in building a governance structure needs to start now. We need a public-facing task force with the city council, the mayor's office, and the school board sitting in a room together and putting a governance structure in place so that we avoid exactly why the state takeover took place in 2019, which was the city council raised their hands and looked at the mayor and said, this is your problem. The mayor looked at the school board and said, no, this is your problem. And nothing worked. We need to get those stakeholders in a room together to put a governance structure in place by next summer. The second thing we need to do in this city is recognize that our student body has fundamentally changed in the past decade. 60% of students now are multilingual learners. We don't have the professional development skills in our teaching body to teach the next generation of students in this city. Those are the two things we need to do from day one to get our schools back and do it the right way.
Thank you. We are going to turn now to the issue of rising anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is on the rise globally, and Rhode Island is no exception. In 2024, Rhode Island recorded 52 anti-Semitic incidents, with 34 of them occurring right here in Providence. Ward 2 is home to one of the city's largest Jewish communities, and many of us have legitimate concerns about safety, inclusion, and growing isolation. What concrete actions would you take to ensure the Jewish community feels protected, supported, and fully included in civic life? Mr. Caldwell, we'll start with you.
According to the ADL, it seems 344% increase in anti-Semitic activity in the past 5 years. Presently, we have all seen recently in the news what's happening up the road in Smithfield and how we are coming to a place where things are going in, I will charitably say, the wrong direction. As far as my perspective on this, I will tell you, when I was in the Gulf of Aqaba in Jordan, the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit, we were within a stone's throw of Eilat, Israel. We were not allowed to even acknowledge that it existed, and we had Jewish Marines that it was a strong discussion about whether or not it was safe for them to be in Jordan off the ship. That's a true story. So I am familiar with what it's like to be in a place where you have to be afraid. As far as Providence, we need to make sure the city council doesn't engage in behaviors that help fulminate that. They should not be involved in divisive discussions. They should bring people together and ensure an environment where that is not allowed to fester and grow.
Thank you. Ms. Davidson.
So first of all, I want to commend the Jewish Alliance for leadership and what's happening in Smithfield. This is personal for all of us. And it's personal for me. Two of my sons played football at classical high school, and one of them was the victim of anti-Semitic incident at an away game. So I know how that can feel on a personal level. I think, to some extent, many of us who are Jewish do. So what can we do as city leaders to make a difference? First of all, when I was on the board of the Jewish Community Center and also Temple Emmanuel, I worked with Providence Police, all board members did, to think about security measures that we could adopt. These are the security measures that we see today. I think the police officer that's in the lobby here, keeping us safe, and those partnerships are critical. We also need Jewish representation on the city council. It's critical that our voices are in the room and be able to nuance some of the incidents that Dave has been referring to. Third of all, we need to build a community. This only happens when people get separated. When right-wing media gets into people's heads, we need to connect people, not divide people. That's what's going to make the difference.
Thank you. Mr. Brito.
As a man of color, I absolutely do sympathize with this issue. It's pervasive in America now that we think about it and look at it. Like Caldwell said, that incident in Smithfield was just morally wrong, and we should be working towards improving the community fabric that we have here. We, no matter religion, creed, or background, are all Providence members. Topics relating to what's happening abroad should not be discussed within city council or the mayor, whether or not he flies a certain flag. It should be specifically about us, our desires, our needs, our wants, and how we feel included. And here at this space, I feel included. I see so many faces out here that are worried about our futures, and I'm glad you guys are here. It's what makes Providence, a tight-knit community.
Thank you. Mr. McDermott.
Well, look, I think as others have alluded to, the hate crime in Smithfield last week is emblematic of why this issue matters at the local level and why it matters to have local elected officials that understand how these issues permeate in our state. I frankly think the superintendent and school leadership in Smithfield should be resigning given what's happened, but that's a whole nother conversation. And look, it has been the work of my entire professional career on voting rights, democracy reform, my chairing of the LGBTQ+ Victory Fund. I have worked in the diversity and inclusion space my entire professional career, and it has been my moniker that when you don't have a seat at the table, you're too often on the menu. And I think we need more folks in this city in particular, given the national political environment we're living in, who understand the importance of building community, bringing people together, and moving our issues forward in a way that can deliver meaningful progress. So thank you for the question.
So Rabbi Fell's sermon on Yom Kippur at Temple Emmanuel was about anti-Semitism, and he made the point that anti-Semitism seems to increase historically during times of economic instability. And I would say that's also true during times of political instability. And it doesn't help to have a president and an entire political party, really, that encourages hate speech, encourages hateful actions, makes it acceptable, and I think that's when you get the sort of situation that happened up in Smithfield. But I also think it's worth pointing out that we're not the only targets here. Muslim community, the LGBTQ community, the immigrant community are all at risk generally and because of Trump policies. And the Jewish community in Rhode Island has a long history of working towards social justice. And this is a perfect opportunity for us to reach out to the other communities that are also at risk, join together with them, and find ways through a task force bringing people together to make sure that Rhode Island remains, and Providence remains welcoming and safe for everybody.
Thank you all. Turning now to an issue that I think has bipartisan outrage, the proliferation of illegal motorbikes. They have impacted every Providence neighborhood with particularly severe effects on the east side as riders use the boulevard and other main roads, including North Main. Effective solutions have proven elusive. As city councilor, what measures would you implement to keep Providence safe for drivers, pedestrians, cyclists, and let all of us get a little bit more sleep.
Well, am I on?
Great.
Okay, so you outlined the problem brilliantly. I don't have to reiterate it. We all know that keeping our streets safe and keeping our neighborhoods calm is a real challenge. And as Matt pointed out, it's gotten even worse since the Washington Bridge closed. We have traffic at our streets that we didn't plan for and that we didn't expect. There's a lot that we can do, and I want to point to the good work that Councilwoman Sue Anderbois is doing in North Main Street Task Force. She's brought together businesses, community members in the city to address a very, very dangerous place in Providence. I think there's a lot we can learn and a lot that we can take back to think about traffic calming, educating drivers. We also need to be working with the police and be on enforcement when there are illegal vehicles on our streets, full stop. There's a lot else that we can do to be thoughtful about traffic calming. Again, I've been grateful to work on that in Olneyville. There's a lot that we can be doing here to make our streets safer for all of us.
I think this is the only issue tonight where I won't try to argue that Trump is making things worse. Although, give him time, I envision the National Guard coming into Providence on loud motorbikes. This is something I've experienced. I live on Brown Street on College Hill. We have loud motorcycles leaving Thayer Street, going down Brown Street. I think it is purely an enforcement problem. We have laws that regulate noise, we have laws that regulate safe driving, and we have laws that should keep many of these vehicles off the streets completely. And we just don't enforce these laws, and we need to do a better job of that. It wouldn't actually be that difficult, I think. I was speaking to a neighbor on Brown Street who said to me, why don't the police just set up a trap here 1 or 2 Saturday nights so that people with these bikes know that they're at risk of getting an expensive ticket if they don't drive safely and quietly. We don't do that, and we need to do a better job of enforcement so that we can all get better sleep.
Thank you. Mr. Caldwell.
Thank you. We live right where Butler opens up to Blackstone, and there's the big sign that says, rev up your engine and go faster right here, okay? Now, I've never actually seen it, but I do know it's there because I live with it. Okay? So, last election cycle, things were really out of control with the ATVs and the unregistered dirt bikes. So what we're seeing mostly right now are registered motorcycles that are loud. This is an enforcement issue. It's predominantly a noise ordinance issue now. The illegal vehicles have largely been stopped. These are actually, when you see them, look for license plates, and you're gonna see them now. Because I check, they always used to marshal up on Irving, rev the engines, stop the traffic and go, usually across my front lawn. I have pictures, okay? What you need to have is a council person who has a good relationship with the police. I'm endorsed by the FOP. I know how this works. I know how to make that work and get the cops out here. A couple of speed traps, a couple of times. That's how it works. Okay? I can get that done. Who's next?
Thank you. Mr. Brito.
In the face of 2 deaths, pedestrian deaths here in Providence, I think this is honestly a question that I shouldn't be answering. Because more important than sleep is the safety of our kids, the safety of our elderly, the safety of everyone. We need to improve our sidewalks. We need to make Providence safer and more accessible for everybody. People that are disabled as well are left out, cracks on the street, improper signage. We need to look at these issues. We need to expand our ability. If we can talk about environmental friendliness, but our streets aren't made for walking, they aren't made for biking, there's not enough bike lanes. We need to improve those to the capacity that it becomes safer, and that is something we should be focusing on. Not whether or not there's a bike going down the street and interrupting your sleep. It should be a matter of walkability.
Thank you. Mr. McDermott.
So look, I have heard from far too many neighbors knocking doors over the past 6 weeks, the frustration they have in local elected leadership. How many times they've emailed someone in city government, how many times they've emailed a local elected official, how many times they've tried 311 and seen a ticket closed out and never gotten a response. And I bring it up because it's why elections like this matter, and getting a voice onto the city council that is actually going to be there for you when we have these issues and is going to show up and do the work to deliver on these types of problems. Because frankly, we have a huge opportunity actually on this issue in the next few years. We've already got about $500 million in capital improvement dollars between now and 2030 that are going to be spent on reinvesting in this city, improving our streetscapes, improving our sidewalks, making our communities more livable. How those dollars get spent, and particularly how they get spent in our community in light of the Washington Bridge crisis, I think is actually one of the biggest opportunities we have in the next few years to make meaningful progress on seeing the changes we all want in this neighborhood.
Thank you. Providence faces a persistent budget crisis. Where would you seek cost savings, and what new revenue sources would you pursue? Mr. Brito, we are starting with you.
I know this is going to be controversial, and the FOP would not like this, but reducing our budget for the police department would be one step, and cutting administrative bloat from PPSD is another. Just straight on. Those are the easiest way to get more money. But more importantly, we need to hold nonprofit institutions like Brown and other colleges here in Providence accountable. They need to be paying more taxes. They need to be, just as a whole, contributing more to our community than they currently are. And right now, they have 22 properties that they are going to sell, and that should be sold back to the city for pennies on the dollar, so that we can turn those units into affordable housing units. That's it. We're addressing so many problems here, and this might seem progressive, but if you think about it, investing now ends up being the most conservatively fiscal thing we can do. Just straight on.
Thank you. Mr. McDermott.
So the good news is we have fiscal stability in this city for the first time in a generation under the mayor's leadership. The bad news is we have got to get out of the cycle of balancing our budget on the backs of property taxes. It is the only mechanism right now, literally the only mechanism in the city of Providence by which we can raise revenues is property taxes. That's it. My encouragement has been the need for those on the city council to work with our state delegation to come up with additional ways to generate revenue streams into this city, and I think we can do it. It's why I think it's so critically important that we have a voice on the council who is able to sit down and work together and collaborate with our state delegation. There are a variety of sort of means by which we can pursue it. Representative Rebecca Kislak has an idea that's going to be coming up before the legislature this year that's basically an ancillary fee on entertainment tickets. You come in from the suburbs, you enjoy a night out in Providence, leave $1 or $2 in a tax on that ticket and put that into the operating budget of Providence, but we've got to find ways to generate revenue into the city beyond property taxes.
I'm going to pick up what Matt put down because I agree with everything he said. And I have been told by a friend of mine in the General Assembly that it has been years since anybody from the City Council has been up to the State House to meet with our state delegation at the House of Representatives and the Senate. That's terrible. The state is too small. Providence is too important to the state for us not to have a good working relationship with the state, because Matt's right. If we don't have other sources of income, which are largely likely to come from the state, we're just going to have to keep raising property taxes because there are not a lot of places left for savings. I am in favor of a millionaire tax at the state level, a 1% surtax on people who make more than $1 million a year that we have in Massachusetts. It exists in Connecticut. It hasn't driven people away from the state. In Rhode Island, it could raise about $190 million a year. An entertainment tax is nice, and that was also a good idea, but $190 million a year could be sent down in some form to the cities and towns, again, largely probably to make up for some of the cuts in federal funding that we're going to see over the next 3 years.
Thank you. Mr. Caldwell.
Providence is growing. The most important thing we can do is continue to welcome folks that want to be here, that do the work that makes this state run. Now, where are we going to get the money? following up on Jeff's very important point, is we, as Providence and a delegation at the State House and the City Council, do not punch in our weight class up in the State House. I can tell you for sure that those towns and cities that are not building housing because they don't want it, they want 1,500 job distribution centers in Johnston, where the average starting salary is about 20 bucks, 40,000 a year, but they absolutely will not, they're proud to tell you, we will not build housing for people unless they're millionaires here in Johnston. So where are those folks gonna live? I'll give you a hint: when they're coming out of work on Route 6, it's going east. So the folks at the State House do know this. If your town is not building the housing, then you're gonna have to pay for it where it needs to go. In other words, the money needs to flow to where the housing's gonna go.
Thank you, Ms. Davidson.
Like, as most people up here have pointed out, economic development is a team sport, and we have to work together with the state to make that happen. We saw what happened when Hasbro left. They left for Massachusetts because there was better education, better healthcare, a more innovative climate, more easily accessible housing. So clearly, we have to play the long-term game to improve all those things, and we've talked about those topics tonight. We do have some advantages, though. 99% of Rhode Island's businesses are small businesses. So in Providence, right now, we can do much more to encourage entrepreneurship and innovation by lowering the barriers for small businesses in every way possible, encouraging that innovation and encouraging that investment. Are 99% of our businesses Hasbro? No, but they make a tremendous difference. I bet many of you are small business owners, and I've heard from many people how hard it is to sustain a business here in Providence. That's something concrete that we can change as we work on the long term to create a better business climate, more investment, and get larger companies to stick here and stay.
Thank you to all of our candidates for their answers. Now we are going to turn to our lightning round. Candidates will have 30 seconds to answer these questions. To make things easy, we are going to go in alphabetical order, starting with Mr. Brito. Mr. Brito, you are up first. Dells or Mr. Lemon?
Hands down, Dells. It's one of my favorite treats, honestly, in Rhode Island. I take classic over watermelon. Like, sue me. It's honestly, I love Dells. Too bad they usually only take cash, Tap to pay would be pretty nice.
Dell's, it is across the street from my office in North Kingstown. Been going there literally my whole life.
Dells, because we can walk to it. You get a Dells at Eastside Mart, and it's a big ritual with my kids every spring to go and get it, the first Dells of the season. So, Dells, sorry, Mr. Lemon.
Everybody else is wrong. Mr. Lemon is far better than Dells. And actually, I wait every year for the root beer flavor to come out at Mr. Lemon because that's the best. And it's a good thing it's not around all year round, but once a year, a root beer from Mr. Lemon, that's the way to go.
There's that independent voice, Jeff. I've honestly been waiting for a cease and desist letter from Dells, given that anyone who's gotten a palm card from me in the past 6 weeks has seen me holding a photo with one, so I'd have to echo the Dells support.
Thank you. Again, we are going to start with Mr. Brito. What is your favorite Rhode Island beach?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Second Beach, Setchusett Beach, or not a beach, but Beavertail. Gorgeous, just absolutely beautiful. I prefer the beaches in Rhode Island as opposed to the beaches in LA. People talk about, they talk about all our beaches, Venice Beach, disgusting. You come here, it's absolutely beautiful. You people are wonderful. You take care of your communities, and I love it.
My favorite beach is the North Kingstown Town Beach in Whitford, because there is a bandstand there named after Joe Pelosi, who was the music teacher and band leader at North Kingstown High School for 40 years. For those of you who have ever the chance to spend 4th of July or just a nice evening down there with the Lafayette Community Band, it's a wonderful evening. I'd highly encourage you to try it if you never have.
Before this race started, I went to the beach 10 times this summer. I love going to the beach. I would have gone more, but I found something else to do, and I'm glad to be doing it. I love so many beaches in Rhode Island. We try to get out every summer. I think this summer, Misquamicut was like the most magical day that I had. But we are really blessed in Rhode Island to have easy access to so many beaches, and I want to continue to make sure our state invests in our beaches, takes care of it, because they're a natural resource for everybody to use.
I hesitate to say this because this is a very small beach and I don't need word to get out, but East Beach in Charlestown is actually, I think, the most beautiful beach in Rhode Island. It's very small, it's got a beautiful view. The problem is there's no services, no real restrooms, so don't come, it's fine.
And to think folks think there's no daylight between the candidates. I'd have to go with East Matunic State Beach.
Thank you. All right, what is your favorite thing to do in Ward 2?
Wow, that's interesting. You know, being on College Hill, we don't tend to leave. I mean, I do, but like, talk to my other peers. Honestly, my favorite thing is exploring. Like, there's a lot to do. Like, typically I'm off of Ward 2, but there is quite a bit to do in Ward 2 when you think about it. Let me think about it, actually. There's the restaurants. The restaurants are good. But I usually try to leave Ward 2 to have fun, you know? Ward 1 has the stuff. And that's why we need mixed-use development. So we can have things to do in Ward 2 and housing.
Our favorite thing to do is we're very fortunate. We live right at the start of the Boulevard Park, and any day you can just step out literally your front steps and walk up Blackstone Boulevard, sometimes up the Rochambeau and back, sometimes all the way to Lippert Park for dinner or an ice cream at Three Sisters. But that is our favorite thing to do, is just walk up the boulevard anytime we want, up and back, and come home.
My favorite thing to do is bring my dog June to the Waterman Street Dog Park. It's incredible. We feel really lucky to have it here. I've donated to it, and I want to do everything I can to make sure that for those of us who are dog owners, it remains as a special place. I met so many cool people there. I met so many cool dogs there. It's awesome. So that's my favorite thing to do here.
I enjoy riding my motorbike past Dave's house on Blackstone Boulevard. I've lived in Ward 2 for 27 years, and I think I've done everything there is to do here, so I really don't know what the answer is to that, but Dave's right. I think going for a walk on Blackstone Boulevard with one of my friends on a nice day is really about as good as it gets.
I'll have to echo Jill. My husband and I have a rambunctious 1.5-year-old golden doodle named Theo, who has become a prominent feature of the Waterman Street Dog Park. So that, and look, the parks we have over and off of Blackstone Boulevard by the river are a huge asset to this city. I think it's why so many of us love to call this neighborhood home. Unfortunately, Theo has to stay on the leash there.
Thank you. I think I will take a page from Jill and Matt and start bringing Gus to the dog park. So thank you for the tip. All right, our last question. What is an ideal evening in Providence?
Man, call me a hopeless romantic, but you know, being near the pedestrian bridge, you know, it's a bit of ice cream with your partner, watching the sun go down, just absolutely beautiful, seeing it reflect off the water, the bay, walking over to Indian Point Park and finishing it off with a nice meal down there. I think it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Maybe a beer or two would also help.
Sounds wonderful. My ideal evening would be going out to dinner at one of the fantastic restaurants we have in Providence with my wife. I also very much enjoy going to Trinity Rep and occasionally catching a quirky play like Cold War Choir Practice they just premiered. That you can catch a play like that in Providence, and I'm not sure you really can in a lot of other places, when it really is interesting, it's quirky, it's original, it's fresh. That's something we're lucky to have here, in my opinion. Now, they're not all great. Sometimes you catch one that's not so great, but you know, that's what goes with Trinity, which is a jewel. I love Trinity.
Spent many fabulous evenings in Providence, from when I was a Brown student to just a couple weeks ago when we met friends at Avenue N for dinner. Avenue N is an example of the kind of really special restaurant that's in Ward 2 that I love to be at. Great drinks, great food. We can walk there. So I think, taking advantage of the walkability and the connectedness of our neighborhood just makes being in Providence really special. So I'm going to stick close to home and enjoy a nice dinner at Avenue N.
I would say going to watch the sunset at Prospect Park on Condon Street, wow, is a great thing to do on a beautiful night. And if we're doing it on a beautiful night in the summer, then going to have dinner at El Forno, which unfortunately is in Ward 1, but I'll go there. We were given Providence. At the last forum, we were told it had to be Ward 2. So I'll take advantage of that and say sitting outside at El Forno in the summer and then going to bed early.
Well, look, I think it's such a great question because I think it underscores why, despite all the challenges that we've spent talking about tonight, how amazing this city is. The nightlife, the culture, the culinary scene. For my husband and I, you'll likely on a Friday night find us a gift horse with a vodka martini and oysters and heading out from there. And look, I think what makes this city so great too is our ability to walk there. I don't own a car. We walk everywhere in this city. It's part of what makes this city so special. So, appreciate the question.
Thank you to everybody. You each will now have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. As we have been doing, we'll go in alphabetical order. So, Mr. Brito, we'll again start with you.
At the end of the day, whether we're Democrat, Republican, we can all agree on one thing, and it's that we want the best thing for our kids. And we've looked at how stagnated our city has been. It's a unitary system. It's all Democrats, and yet nothing ever gets done. They tend to be closeted conservatives, for the most part. No offense, Jill. You're awesome. I love your platform. But for the most part, they tend to be pretty conservative when it comes to their policies, and they don't have our best interests at heart. At the end of the day, they're land developers. They're lawyers with wealthy backgrounds. They don't necessarily represent us as people. And I don't think they represent us they don't represent me. And they're not going to represent our next generation. They're too old. They're from a time far gone. And they all, sorry audience, but let's be honest. Our kids are our future, and they will be the ones that'll hold Providence in their hands. And we need them to be able to live here, to afford to live here, and to actually stay here, or Providence will die. We need to keep it alive. Thanks for the laughter, guys.
That's a hard one to follow. So, I'm very optimistic on where Providence is going. I'm a strong supporter of the mayor. If you elect me, you can expect that I will be supportive of the mayor's agenda and policies moving forward. I believe that we are blessed to have the abilities of all the folks in this city to work together. That's a very important thing. We will move forward together. Okay? I do not believe in divisive politics or driving people apart. I have a lot of leadership experience. If you vote for me, you will expect clear answers to questions. You will always get that. I feel very strongly that someone in a position of leadership needs to evaluate the data, discuss with everyone what their positions are, but yet make the right decision, make the correct decision. That doesn't always mean it's the easy decision. I have a lot of experience in life in leadership positions, and I know what that means to be out front. And sometimes you don't make friends that way, but you've got to do the right thing to move the city forward. I do understand the ramifications of some of these decisions when it comes to things like rent stabilization and how we will need to find money from the state specifically for rental relief for those that need it. Okay? And I believe in that. The rental relief worked very well in the pandemic because it brought landlords and tenants together to solve the problem with political leaders. That's the theme. We need to work together to move forward. Those that don't want to work together need to be held account to that they have other agendas. I will work together with the council, and I will support the mayor as we continue to move this city forward. Thank you.
I want to thank the Jewish Alliance and Temple Bethel again for bringing us here tonight, and for all of you for your participation and attention. It's been great to see everybody here tonight. So I want to stress that what I have done in Providence for 20 years is make a difference by connecting with neighbors, talking to parents in schools, talking to citizens who live along the river, talking to everybody to make sure that we can come together to make change. That's how I will operate in City Council. And it's really critical now. Because of the government shutdown, we're about to enter into a period where a lot of our residents in our city are going to be hungry, are going to be without health care. We need to have leaders who know how to solve problems and know how to do it compassionately. I'm very proud to be endorsed by Senator Sam Zurier and outgoing Councilwoman Helen Anthony. They know that I have the leadership skills, ability to bring people together, and focus to make real change happen in the city. And I'm excited to get started. I also want to say that campaigning has been an incredible joy. I have gotten to meet so many people, all of you tonight, so many others, and I'm just so impressed by the people in Ward 2. You're thoughtful, you're compassionate, you have great questions, you have great ideas. We all of our voices matter here. And I have the ability to listen, to bring people together, and to make sure that we are making decisions together, along with the 14 other city council people who I already work with and who I know, to move our city forward. So I hope that, by the time we conclude, I've earned your vote. It's been delightful to see everybody tonight, and thank you so much.
As the oldest candidate on the stage, Axel, I want to assure you we can keep Providence alive for another 10 years or so. In 2023, early 2023, I got a phone call from a woman named Jess Purcell in Richmond, Rhode Island. And Jess had run for the school board, the Charahoe School Board, and lost in the previous year. Somebody resigned from the school board in Richmond, and the law required the town council to appoint Jess to that seat. They didn't. They ignored the law. They appointed a MAGA, anti-trans, anti-public schools Republican to the seat. And Jess wanted some help, and the Democratic Party wasn't doing anything for her. I went to the Attorney General's office personally, and the Attorney General's office was not interested in doing anything for her. So I took the case pro bono. We took it to the Rhode Island Supreme Court. We won. Jess got her seat on the council, and then she ran for re-election last year and won, and she's still on the council. And I encourage all of you to contribute to her re-election campaign next year, because she's terrific. I tell you this story to illustrate the kind of things that I've tried to do throughout my career as a lawyer, and the kind of energy and ethics that I would bring to the city council. We need to be prepared to fight for Providence, particularly in the shadow of Donald Trump. There are times to collaborate, and I know how to collaborate. I've negotiated a lot of deals during my 30 years as a lawyer, but there are also times that you just have to stand up and fight for what's right. And that's what I have a lot of experience doing, and that's what I would do for the city of Providence. I also want to emphasize again the independence issue, because I think Matt and I are the only free agents left on the stage. Dave, and I'll give it to Axel too. Dave has pledged his support to the mayor, and I respect that. And Jill has the support of the council president, and I respect that. And I agree with the mayor on some things, and I agree with the council president on some things. But I think it's really important to represent Ward 2, to have the freedom to do what we know is right, and not be tied to another politician because we need or want their help to get elected. Thanks, and I hope I can earn your vote.
So let me, as particularly the last one speaking tonight, thank all of you. This has been an unprecedented special election. The City of the Boston Globe reported, I think a week ago, that this is the most expensive election in Providence history. And in part because it's important. There are critically important issues, particularly when it comes to our schools, that will be facing this council over the next year. And it is critically important that we get a voice out of this neighborhood who's willing to put in the work to get it done. I am in this race, as I mentioned earlier, for deeply personal reasons. My husband and I are here to start a family, and those issues I just talked about are going to be issues that affect the trajectory of our family and every family in this city. We need someone on the council who understands that for the next generation, getting our public schools right, addressing the affordability crisis, and improving our public infrastructure need to be issues of importance for this council. It is important that we have a council that's willing to work together with the mayor and on the issue of our schools with our school board to actually meaningfully move progress forward in this city. So thank you. It has been an incredible 5 weeks talking on doors. I think the thing I am most encouraged by is the spirit of this community and the desire to bring our neighbors together to finally start to address the challenges that we have faced for decades in this city. And I think we have the opportunity with the inflection point next year with our public schools to finally have a voice on the council who's going to raise their hand, touch what has been the third rail of politics in our community for far too long, and say, I'm actually going to do something about it. So thank you all for taking the time to hear from all of us tonight, and I really hope that I can earn your vote next Tuesday.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Let's give a big round of applause to the candidates. Thank you, everybody. It is not easy to run for office, so thank you for being with us. If you have time, please hang out. We have some time for you to mingle with the candidates, and thank you all for joining us. Good night.